In the opening scene, we see a woman crawling through the jungle where she eventually gets killed by a strange plant. Later, our main character, Bill, reveals that the woman was his mother who died while trying to understand a carnivorous plant called triffid. Triffids are huge venomous plants that can move and attack humans' eyes. At present, scientists are cultivating these plants for the oil they produce, which works as an alternative for fuel. They believe that it is the only way to solve the energy crisis problem. Keeping the outside world unaware of the dangers of the plants, they experiment on triffids in a secluded area with tight security. While some regard these plants as man's best friend, others disagree and believe the plants should be free. One day, when Bill and Lucy are looking at a triffid, they get notified about an intruder. The intruder is one of the men who wishes to free these plants but is unaware that the plants are capable of killing humans. Later, the intruder attacks Lucy from behind and snatches her glasses. He then throws them away to send a message. Scared, Bill gives his own glasses to Lucy, and soon after that, a triffid stings him in the eye with its venomous branch. As the guards arrive to arrest the intruder, Lucy rushes to the hospital with Bill. After examining him, the doctor reveals that he has a 50% chance of losing his eyesight. Then, he sedates him and bandages his eyes, making him unconscious for 24 hours. Elsewhere, Joe, a reporter, is interviewing a scientist about the solar storm that everyone is eagerly waiting to see. The scientist assures her that the solar storm will cause no harm to mankind. However, things do not come out as he predicted. When the entire world finally views the breathtaking image of the solar storm approaching the Earth, a quick flash of light hits, causing all types of technology to lose signal, and everyone who sees it to feel a burning sensation in their eyes. Back at the hospital, Bill wakes up hearing some noise from outside. He tries calling for the nurse, but no one answers. Hence, he goes to the restroom, where he feels relieved to discover that his eyesight is fine. Later, as he makes his way outside to the hallway, he gets startled to discover a crowd of people screaming and panicking. There, he encounters the doctor and learns that everyone who watched the solar storm has lost their vision. Elsewhere, in a plane, everyone, including the pilots who witnessed the storm, lose their vision. But surprisingly, a guy named Torrance becomes an exception since he was asleep the entire time while wearing an eye mask. Later, realizing the situation and the fact that the plane is going to crash, he wraps himself with a flock of life jackets. The plan works, and fortunately, he survives the crash. On the other side, as Bill wanders through the chaotic city of London, he stumbles upon Joe, who is being mobbed by a crowd of desperate blind people. When he understands that the others are attacking her because she can see, he rescues her, and they manage to escape by staying quiet. Meanwhile, the intruder at the Triffid lab has kept his vision unharmed by covering his eyes with his hood during the storm. Taking advantage of Lucy's and everyone else's blindness, he takes his chance and frees the dangerous plants. The next day, Bill and Joe arrive at Whitehall, where a crowd of blind people has gathered, pleading with the cops to help them. The pair manages to pass through the crowd to the gate, and then ask the cops to let them in. However, the situation is simply too chaotic for it to happen. The commotion later causes the blind cops to shoot at each other and the general public, so Bill and Joe immediately leave the scene. Following this, Bill decides to go to the Triffid lab to check on the plants, and Joe follows him. After stealing a car, they arrive at their destination only to discover that the plants have fled, leaving a horrific sight with the dead bodies of Lucy and everyone else they killed. Bill then gathers all of his plant-related research materials in the hope that they will be useful later. After that, they drive to Joe's father's house, which is only a few miles away from the farm. However, it is too late, and Joe gets to witness the horrific scene of her dead father's body being dragged by a Triffid. Distraught, she starts shooting the Triffid with a gun, but this only attracts more of them. Sensing the danger, Bill drags her away and they escape in their car. On their way, they stop at a bridge and see numerous Triffids crawling here and there. This makes the duo realize how serious the situation has become. So, they make a stop at a BBC broadcasting station and begin a live interview to inform the world about how the Triffids are out there eating humans. He also warns them that the plants would most likely move to cities where there are more people, and that they should avoid them. Later, the two have a brief chat in which Bill talks about his parents. His father, whom he hasn't seen in years, was actually the one to find out that genetically manipulating these plants was the solution to the energy crisis. His mother, on the other hand, had a different opinion and later died as a result of a Triffid sting. In the meantime, the sole survivor of the plane crash, Torrance, visits the house of the Prime Minister where he meets his now blind secretary. Torrance, blinded by his desire for authority over the country, leaves the following morning, dragging the secretary with him. Elsewhere, Bill notices fireworks coming from a building across the city, which he takes as a signal from other individuals who can see. In the hopes of meeting other people, Bill and Joe leave towards the tower. On their way, they come across Torrance, who is busy gathering weapons. When the pair notifies him about the signals, Torrance does not appear interested and instead invites them to join him. However, Joe and Bill decline the offer and leave. After a while, the pair arrives at the building, which reveals to be the Home Office, where an Army officer, Coker, is shouting and criticizing the actions of the Home Office because the Home Office is refusing to let the blind people into the building. Yet, Bill and Joe are allowed to enter since they can see. However, Bill soon decides to leave to find his father after discovering that the Home Office will still not take the Triffids seriously, despite his warnings. Joe also decides to join him since she finds it immoral that the Home Office is only concerned with helping those who can see. Elsewhere, Coker is preparing to attack the Home Office. In the meantime, Torrance appears and informs him that he wants to help and hands over the guns he had gathered earlier. Coker, who is unaware of Torrance's bad intentions, allows him to join the group. While Bill is about to leave the office, Coker's squad launches a surprise attack, knocking everyone down with smoke grenades and tear gas. They take everyone who can see, including Bill and Joe. Later, Coker handcuffs one-sighted person with one blind person so that the capable ones can look after the weaker ones. This convinces Bill that Coker is a good person, but he underestimates the Triffids. Moments later, the group departs in search of food and other supplies. As soon as they arrive at a supermarket, they begin collecting whatever they can get their hands on. However, they are soon attacked by a Triffid, which murders several people and also manages to capture and drag Joe. Fortunately, Bill rushes to her rescue and attacks the Triffid with fire, eventually killing it. Upset that many people have been killed, Bill furiously asks Coker if this is what he wants. The latter also finally understands how dangerous these plants are, so he decides to listen to Bill and informs Torrance that Bill will be his right hand. This makes the evil guy somewhat upset, but he doesn't say anything. Later, Joe informs Torrance that she is ready to perform the live broadcast that he requested earlier. Torrance mentions that she needs to do it immediately since it is crucial. However, this only turns out to be a scheme to keep her occupied. While she is busy, Torrance kidnaps Bill and Coker to get rid of them in the forest. After the broadcast is over, Torrance lies to Joe that Bill and Coker were killed in a Triffid attack. To make his statement more convincing, he gives her the stuff from Bill's jacket. In the meantime, Bill awakens in the forest, and Coker explains to him of Torrance's plans to eliminate them. Fortunately, before Torrance's thugs can kill them, they get attacked by a swarm of Triffids. While the plants are killing the guys, the duo manages to break free from their restraints and steal the truck. However, despite their successful escape, a Triffid manages to sting Coker's eyes. Back in London, Joe is continuing her broadcasts with the intention to help people. After a while, she begins to suspect Torrance, as she sees the guys who are actually Coker's supporters obediently following Torrance. So she approaches a young soldier named Troy and inquires if Bill and Coker are actually dead. As a response, he tells her that he isn't sure because he hasn't seen their bodies. Later, Joe tells Torrance that she wants to have the meal with him that she had previously declined. While he excitedly starts preparing for it, Joe makes a final broadcast warning people not to come, and that Torrance is a bad man. This enraged Torrance, so he sends his men behind her. Troy notices her on her way out, but he lets her go. After that, she encounters a swarm of Triffids, but she manages to avoid them and eventually escape in a car with Bill's things. Meanwhile, Bill and the injured Coker arrive at a church. The nuns happily take them in and begin treating Coker. The head nun then informs Bill that the church is secure from Triffids because of God's protection. But this only makes him suspicious. As he leaves the church to find his father, he discovers that the head nun had been sending people as food to keep the plants away from the church. This enrages Bill, and he returns to the church immediately to reveal everything. He comes just in time, stopping her from sending another girl to die with the deception that she's going to start a new community. This exposes the nun, and she is eventually exiled. Elsewhere, while Joe is heading towards the location Bill mentioned while talking about his childhood, she gets chased by someone in a car. She tries to run, but the person eventually catches up with her. Meanwhile, Bill arrives in a town where he is attacked by sudden gunshots. The attackers are later identified as two young girls, Susan and Imogen. They are initially suspicious of him, but when Bill explains his cause, they help him find a car. Bill then drives with the two girls to his father's house. After a while, they come across another vehicle on the road. Surprisingly, it turns out to be Bill's father, and they all proceed to their destination. The house where his father resides is guarded by electric lines, which startle the little girls. Later, as they enter, Bill is shocked as well as delighted to see Joe asleep. This discloses that the man who appeared to be chasing Joe was in fact Bill's father. When she wakes up, she gets overwhelmed by emotions to see Bill standing in front of him, and they end up spending the night together. Following that, Bill's father tells him that in order to stop the Triffids, a new type of plant must be created. The new ones must be able to sterilize the existing triffids rather than fertilize them, putting an end to the existence of these plants. He then reveals that he has already been experimenting on a female triffid, and now requires pollen from a male triffid in order to continue his work. Hearing this, Bill promises to get his father a male triffid. In this next scene, the two sisters are practicing shooting, and Susan becomes annoyed when her younger sister refers to Bill and Joe as dad and mum. Elsewhere, Bill tells Joe about his father's plan, which worries her, so he promises her that he will return alive, and then departs with his father's gun to seek a male triffid. After driving a few miles, he finally arrives at the triffid lab, where he cautiously searches for a male specimen. He detects something that he assumes is the plant and tries to attack it, only to learn that it is Susan. When he is about to scold her for hiding and coming there, a male triffid appears and begins dragging Susan. Bill instantly begins shooting, but that does not kill it. So, with no other choice, he jumps up on the plant and repeatedly hits it with the flaming torch, finally killing it. Following this, the two return to the house with the male triffid's head, making everyone relieved. Then, the father-son duo immediately begins working on the triffid. While doing so, they have a chat about the past, which causes Bill to have flashbacks of the day his mother died, with images of natives flashing through his mind. His father then reveals that he has some materials from his mother's research on triffids. When his father opens the box, he gets surprised to see the same mask that he saw on the native people in the flashback. Later that day, all of the triffids begin sporing, which worries the evil Torrance as well. So, in the hopes of finding something useful, he sends his men to the triffid lab to find Bill's triffid research materials. The next morning, a helicopter drops a bunch of leaflets about the Isle of Wight, where the survivors are living with doctors and food. Bill's father says that once they release the new triffid that they are working on, they will all depart for the Isle of Wight. Hearing this, the family gets renewed hope for survival. After feeding the triffid, Bill's father plays a recording of the triffid sound that his dead wife left, but it unexpectedly makes the plant more violent. As a result, it comes after him. Hearing his scream, Bill rushes over and stops the recording before shooting and killing the triffid. Unfortunately, when he goes to check on his father, it's too late. The old man has died due to the poison. Bill mourns for his father and also realizes that he has destroyed their only hope of stopping the triffids. Since he doesn't have enough time to restart the experiment, he decides to leave for the Isle of Wight with Joe and the girls the very next morning. However, things do not go as planned when Torrance arrives there with his men. He kidnaps the two girls and threatens Bill that if he doesn't come up with a way to kill these carnivorous plants within 24 hours, he will kill them along with Joe. Bill agrees, but he knows there is no way out of this. Hence, he plans to play the recordings so that the triffids can arrive and murder the bad guys. Later, while Torrance calls Bill to threaten him once again, Susan manages to sneak outside after playing the recording. As expected, a swarm of triffids begins to approach the house at night. Realizing that he has been betrayed, Torrance instructs Troy to shoot the two girls while he proceeds with his other men to attack the triffids. As Troy enters the room where the family is, he informs them of Torrance's order. Hearing this, Joe requests Troy to join them in their escape because she knows he is not a bad person. The latter obliges, and he shoots somewhere else to fool Torrance into thinking that he has finished the task. Following this, when the plants get close to the electric wires, Torrance instructs Troy to switch them on, but the latter lies that they aren't working. Shortly after, the plants begin killing everyone outside, which frightens Torrance, so he flees, leaving his soldiers to die. When he comes inside, he sees Troy attempting to escape with the family. Enraged, he shoots the poor man in the leg, but before he can cause any more damage, Bill knocks him out with a taser gun. Just then, Bill sees the same flashback, but this time he remembers everything. If you pour the venom into your eyes while wearing the mask, it will not injure your eyes but will fool the triffids into believing you are one of them. He had actually survived the day his mother died by doing the same thing. Following this, he performs the same process on everyone, using a broken triffid vein to pour the venom. Meanwhile, Torrance awakens only to be killed by the plants while the others escape. In the ending scene, the entire family, including Troy, is on a boat headed towards the Isle of Wight, hoping to find a means to survive and a method to put an end to the triffids.